My name's Ethan Cole. I've been on the road for over 20 years, driving rigs across just about every stretch of highway this country has to offer. If you've ever wondered what it's like to live your life behind the wheel of a semi, let me tell you, the road gives, and the road takes. You see more sunrises in a month than most people see in a year. You learn to read the sky like a map, to smell a storm long before it hits. You get used to silence, the kind of silence only a two-lane back road at 3 in the morning can give you. But sometimes, the road shows you things you can't explain, things you wish you could forget, and tonight, I want to tell you about the night that's haunted me more than any other, a night that started with a shortcut and ended with something I'll never shake off for as long as I live. It was late summer. I'd just dropped off a load in Kansas City and was heading east with an empty trailer. Dispatch had told me to park and rest, but I figured I'd push on a little further. I knew a back road that cut through the woods and saved me about 45 minutes. Now, any trucker will tell you, shortcuts are a gamble. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. That night, I should have stayed on the main highway, but I didn't. I turned my rig onto an old gravel road, the kind that doesn't even show up right on GPS. Trees pressed close on both sides, branches reaching over like a tunnel. My headlights caught the dust, turning the air white in front of me. There was no one out there. No houses, no gas stations. Just me, my rig, and miles of gravel crunching under the tires. After a while, I pulled over on the shoulder. My back was sore, and I figured I'd stretch my legs before driving on. The second I stepped down from the cab, I noticed it. At first, I thought it was just roadkill. You get used to that smell out here. A deer or raccoon hit too many days ago, rotting in the heat. But this was different. The air felt heavy, sweet, like rotting fruit mixed with burnt sugar. The kind of smell that sticks in your throat and makes you want to gag. I walked a few feet off the road, shining my flashlight through the underbrush. The smell got stronger. My stomach started to turn, and then I saw it. Half hidden under a mess of weeds and branches, there it was. A man. His skin was bloated, discolored, shades of green, purple and black that no living body should ever be. His clothes were torn, his arms stiff at odd angles. For a second, I just froze. My brain didn't want to accept what my eyes were showing me. Then it hit me like a hammer to the chest. I'd found a corpse. I staggered back, nearly tripping over my own boots. My hands were shaking so bad, it took me 3 tries to pull out my phone. I dialed 911, voice cracking as I tried to explain. The operator was calm, almost too calm, like she'd heard it all before. She told me to give her my location. I tried, but I wasn't even sure where the hell I was. Just a gravel road cutting through nowhere. "Sir," she said, "stay where you are. Officers are on the way. Don't leave the body unattended. Unattended." Like I was supposed to babysit it. I wanted to tell her she was out of her mind, but my throat was dry. My voice failed me. The line went dead, and I was left standing in the dark with that smell clogging my lungs. I went back to my rig, grabbed my flashlight, and forced myself to sit down on a fallen log a few feet from the body. The dispatcher's words kept playing in my head. Don't leave the body unattended. So there I sat, alone, the woods stretching endless in every direction. At first, the only sounds were the normal ones. Crickets, the occasional owl. the distant rustle of wind in the trees. But then, things started to feel wrong. The air grew still, dead still. Even the insects stopped. The only sound left was the thundering of my own heartbeat. I glanced at my watch. 10 minutes had passed, but it felt like an hour. The smell grew worse, heavier. It wasn't just in the air anymore. It felt like it was in me, seeping through my skin, coating my tongue. I looked back at the body, my flashlight beam shaking in my hand, and I could swear its arm had moved, just a fraction, just enough to make me doubt myself. I blinked, leaned forward, shining the light again. The arm was still, rigid, lifeless, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it hadn't been. I tried to focus on anything else. The trees, the stars, my truck parked a few yards away. But every time my eyes drifted back to that body, my chest tightened, and then I heard it. A whisper. Soft. Barely there, like words carried on the breeze. My head whipped around, flashlight cutting through the trees. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice cracking. Silence, but I swear, in that silence I could feel it. Someone watching me. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. My gut screamed at me to get back in the truck, lock the doors, and never look back. But I didn't move. I sat frozen, staring at that body like it was going to get up any second. And in a way, I think it already had. I don't know how long I sat there on that log. Could have been 20 minutes. Could have been 2 hours. Time moves different when you're stuck in the dark, with nothing but your own heartbeat echoing in your ears. The woods around me felt alive. Not alive like a forest usually does, with animals and night sounds and movement. No, this was different. It felt alive in the way a closed room feels alive when someone's standing in it with you, even if you can't see them. I tried to distract myself by watching the stars. I've always loved the way the night sky looks when you're far from the city. Out on the road, you see constellations that most folks never even know are there. But that night, the stars looked wrong. Dull. Faded. Like the darkness itself was swallowing them. I shifted my flashlight back toward the body, my stomach lurching. That's when I noticed something new. The position of the body was different. I couldn't explain how I knew, but I knew. The arm that had been tucked close to its side now looked stretched, fingers curled in the dirt like claws. No, I muttered out loud, shaking my head. "No way, it didn't move." "You're just tired, Ethan. You're seeing things." But deep down, I didn't believe that. The stench grew thicker, heavier, until I felt like it was coating the inside of my throat. I gagged, pulling my shirt over my nose. Didn't help. It was like the smell was crawling into me, seeping into my lungs, settling there to rot. I stood up, pacing, fighting back the urge to throw up. My flashlight beam shook across the trees, catching shadows that seemed to bend and stretch just out of reach. And then I heard it again. That whisper, this time, clearer, closer. "Driver!" My knees nearly buckled. I swung the light around, every tree trunk suddenly looking like it was hiding someone. But there was nothing, just shadows on shadows. I wanted to scream. To run, to drive, anything. But I remembered the operator's words. Don't leave the body unattended. So instead, I backed slowly toward my truck. Flashlight locked on that patch of weeds where the corpse lay, and that's when I saw it. For just a second, maybe less, the body's head turned, just slightly, enough for the flashlight to catch the hollow of its eye socket. I bolted, I slammed the door behind me, locked it, and collapsed into the driver's seat. My hands were trembling so badly I could hardly get the key in the ignition. The truck roared to life, a sound I'd never been so thankful for. The vibration of the engine under me, the smell of diesel, all of it felt like a lifeline. But even in the safety of that cab, I couldn't stop shaking. I gripped the wheel, staring straight ahead. "It's fine," I whispered to myself. "It's just nerves. You're tired. You didn't see what you thought you saw." And then I made the mistake of glancing in the rearview mirror. In the mirror, the patch of ground where the body had been was empty, completely empty. But when I whipped my head around to the window, shining my flashlight, there it was, still lying in the weeds, still bloated, still lifeless. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. The mirror wasn't lying. It was showing me something else, something I wasn't supposed to see. And then it got worse, because in the reflection of the mirror, something else stood there. A tall black shadow, right where the body should have been. No face, no features. Just height, darkness, and a presence so strong I felt it pressing against my chest. I jerked the mirror down, heart hammering. But the image was burned into my brain. Something was there. Something that wasn't human anymore. I tried to call dispatch again. My hands were slick on the phone, fingers slipping as I dialed. The ringing barely started when I heard a sound inside the cab. Click! The passenger seat belt buckled itself, pulled tight like someone had just slid into the seat beside me. I froze. My throat went dry. The cab smelled different now. Not just rot, not just death. Something colder. Older. Like wet soil that had been buried deep underground for too long. I didn't dare look. Didn't dare turn my head toward that seat. And then a voice, right against my ear. So close I felt the breath of it. "Driver! You shouldn't have stopped!" I screamed. Full-on screamed, fumbling for the ignition, trying to throw the rig into gear. But the truck stalled. Dead. The dash lights flickered, sputtered, and went dark. The cab was plunged into silence, except for my own ragged breathing. And then, in the quiet, I heard it again. That same whisper, over and over, louder each time. "Driver, driver, driver!" I covered my ears, rocking back and forth, muttering to myself like a madman. But the voice cut through everything. Until, suddenly, it stopped. The cab went still, silent, and then, a flash of red and blue lights in my windshield. The police had finally arrived. The flashing lights hit me like a lifeline. For a second, I almost cried from relief. Blue and red strobes cut through the trees, scattering the shadows that had been pressing against me. My truck, once a tomb, felt alive again with the glow of law enforcement. I shoved the key in the ignition one more time, praying the engine would turn over. And just like that, smooth, steady, powerful, the rig roared back to life, as if it had never stalled at all. That alone sent a shiver up my spine. Trucks don't just fix themselves. But I didn't have time to dwell on it, because 2 officers were already pulling up beside me. I climbed down from the cab, legs like jelly. My boots crunched gravel as I stumbled toward the beams of their flashlights. "You the one who called?" one of them asked. He looked calm, professional, maybe late 30s. The other guy stayed back near the cruiser, scanning the tree line. "Yeah," I managed, my voice cracking. "The body's over there, just Just past the brush, the officer gave me a steady nod and motioned for me to lead the way. Every step felt heavier. I didn't want to go back near that patch of weeds, but I forced myself forward, my flashlight beam jittering with each tremble in my hand. When we reached the spot, my stomach dropped. The ground was empty. No body, no sign of one, not even disturbed earth. It was like nothing had ever been there. The officer swept his light across the area, brows furrowing. "Sir, where exactly are we looking?" Right here," I snapped, my voice breaking. It was right here. Swear to God I saw it. I smelled it. I trailed off, suddenly aware of how insane I sounded. The officer tilted his head. "You said you've been on the road long?" "How many hours today?" The implication stung. He thought I was hallucinating from exhaustion. Maybe he even thought I was drunk. But I wasn't. I knew what I'd seen. While the first officer humored me, the second stayed by the patrol car. His flashlight swept lazily, but at one point it froze. I followed his beam. He was pointing at my truck. No, inside my truck. Through the windshield for just a second, I swore I saw it. A shape. A figure. Sitting in the passenger seat, head bowed, as though patiently waiting for me to return. My heart nearly exploded. I yelled, "There! Right there in the cab! Look!" But by the time the first officer swung his light around, the seat was empty. They both gave me the same look, a mix of skepticism and pity. The first officer sighed. "Look, we'll file a report, but there's no body here, no sign of a crime. My advice? Get some rest, driver. Maybe lay off the caffeine for a night." I wanted to argue, to beg them to believe me, but I could see it in their eyes. They didn't, and honestly, part of me wished I didn't either. They walked me back toward my truck, trying to play it off casual, but halfway there, I smelled it again. That same heavy, sweet rot that had choked me earlier. I gagged, covering my nose, glancing wildly at the officers. But neither of them reacted. They didn't smell it. It was just me. I froze in my tracks, my chest tight. If they couldn't smell it, then whatever this was, it wasn't real. Not in the way normal things are real. I climbed back into the cab, forcing myself to breathe steady. The officers lingered a moment, then drove off, their lights vanishing into the distance, and just like that, I was alone again. The smell grew thicker, wrapping itself around me. My head spun, then came the whisper. Not outside, not in the woods, but right at my window, driver. I jerked my head left and nearly screamed. A pale face was pressed against the glass, its eyes hollow sockets, mouth hanging open in a silent scream. I slammed the truck into gear and peeled out of there, gravel spitting from my tires. Miles flew by in a blur. My knuckles were white on the wheel, my chest burning with every ragged breath. I told myself I wasn't going to look in the mirrors. Not the rear view, not the side mirrors, not even a glance. But eventually, curiosity broke me. I looked, and there it was, the figure, sitting in the passenger seat. Closer this time. Leaning slightly toward me, I nearly lost control of the rig. Swerved. Tires screaming. The figure didn't move. Didn't vanish. Just sat there, watching me with those hollow sockets. That was the moment I knew. This thing wasn't tied to that patch of woods. It wasn't tied to the body. It was tied to me. I had brought it with me. And no matter how many miles I put between myself and that road, it was staying. The road stretched out forever, a dark ribbon under the faint glow of my headlights. Every mile marker I passed felt heavier, as though the distance wasn't taking me farther away from what I'd seen. But deeper into it, the smell still lingered faintly, like it had soaked into the very air of my cab. My hands gripped the wheel so tight that my knuckles ached, and I refused to look right, because I knew what I'd see. The passenger seat creaked now and then, the way it does when someone shifts their weight. The seatbelt clicked, loosened, tightened. Out of the corner of my eye, I swore I saw movement. But I didn't dare turn. Not yet. Hours later, I spotted Salvation, a tiny 24-hour gas station glowing like a beacon in the middle of nowhere. I pulled in hard, brakes squealing, tires crunching gravel. The clerk behind the counter jumped as I burst inside. I must have looked like hell, sweaty, pale, eyes bloodshot. "You all right, man?" he asked. I opened my mouth, ready to spill everything. But the word stuck. How was I supposed to explain it without sounding insane? So instead I muttered, "Coffee. Black. Strong." As he poured, I glanced through the window at my truck, and my stomach dropped. There was someone sitting in the passenger seat. Clear as day, when I walked back out, cup in hand, I froze. On the driver's side window, written in condensation, were words, scrawled in uneven, dripping letters. "Ethan. My name." I staggered back, my knees nearly buckling. No one alive knew my name out here. I hadn't told the cops, not the clerk, no one. That was when I realized I wasn't just being haunted, I was being hunted. I climbed back in, heart pounding so loud I thought my chest would burst. The name had faded from the window, but the air was colder now, the cab's breath misting white. I pressed the gas, the rig roaring forward, but every mile felt heavier, every shadow longer. At one point, the radio flickered to life on its own. Static. Then a voice, not a DJ, not music, just a whisper. "Why'd you disturb me?" I punched the radio off, but the whisper kept coming, low, guttural, seeping right into my ears. Somewhere around mile marker 327, the truck sputtered, lights dimmed. The wheel pulled heavy in my hands. I swore out loud, slamming my fist against the dash. Not here, not now. The engine coughed, then died completely. I was stranded. Again. And this time, I wasn't alone. The passenger seatbelt tightened, clicking into place. I finally forced myself to look. He was sitting there, the same hollow-eyed man I'd first seen in the woods, skin pale, lips blackened, eyes deep voids, and he was smiling. "Driver," he rasped, his voice both inside my head and outside my ears. "You took me with you, and I'm not leaving." I tried to move, but my body felt nailed to the seat. My breath came in shallow gasps. He leaned closer, the smell of decay filling my lungs. "Tell them my story," he whispered, "or I'll ride with you, forever." In a burst of panic, I slammed the ignition, and miracle! The engine roared back. Lights blazed. Air rushed through the vents. I blinked, and the seat was empty. No smell, no figure, no whisper. Just me, my truck, and the endless blacktop. But deep down, I knew the truth. He wasn't gone. Not really. He'd be back. That was years ago. And still, every so often, when I'm out on a lonely stretch of highway, the smell creeps back in, sweet, heavy, wrong. Sometimes, my passenger seatbelt clicks by itself. Sometimes I catch a glimpse in the mirror. a shape where no one should be, and sometimes, in the dead silence of a midnight hall, I hear that same whisper, "Driver," and I know he's still with me. My name is Ethan Cole. I've been a trucker for over 2 decades. I've seen storms that could rip a roof clean off, ice roads that could swallow you whole, and highways that go on longer than your sanity can handle. But nothing has ever haunted me like that night. So the next time you're driving late and you smell something strange, or your passenger seat creaks even though no one's there, remember my story. Because out here on the open road, not every passenger is alive. If you made it this far, thanks for riding with me tonight. Tell me in the comments, what's the creepiest thing you've ever seen on the road? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next ride into the dark side of trucking. Until then, keep your eyes on the road, and whatever you do, don't look at the passenger seat.